Fixing America's schools is urgent for several reasons, but the most obvious one is we're not educating our children to the levels that they will need, particularly children who grow up in poverty, to succeed in a 21st century high-tech global economy that's very demanding on what skills, what knowledge, what education kids have. And right now what we know is that for large majorities of kids who grow up in high-poverty neighborhoods, they're not coming remotely close to what they'll need to be successful, compete, and be effective. Even kids growing up in more affluent communities, while they're getting traditionally, typically a better education, are still not getting the education they need. And if you think about the kind of country we want to be, think about the things that will enable us to succeed going forward. Having a highly educated, employable workforce got to be right near the top of anyone's list. The issue is partisan and politically challenging because there are lots of interest groups that have a stake in the outcome. And so one of the things you find is that you're often fighting about the interests of adults, whether it's union-driven interests, school board-driven interests, bureaucrat-driven interests, which are really firmly entrenched. If you think about the amount of money we commit as a nation to K-12, it's a lot of jobs, it's a lot of status quo. And so moving off of that in order to create new options, better outcomes, more accountability, better education is very challenging. And that's certainly the lesson of the last 30 years. The state of education, in my view, in America today is far below what it needs to be if this country is to succeed in giving every kid from every zip code, from every community, a fair shot at the American dream. What I think is at stake is the kind of country we will be. And what I mean by that is you can't have a country where kids can't move up through education to attain jobs, to get the kind of opportunities that we want, to be able to go on to college and to go on to graduate schools. That's not going to be a winning formula if significant chunks of the population just don't have the education necessary to do that. They're going to find that more and more of the manual jobs which used to be available to people who are not well educated are no longer going to be available in a high-tech 21st century global economy. So now at that point you start to see the fissures it creates in our society between people who really want opportunities but are not getting them. So this is not a nice to have, this is a must to have. The guiding principle for the work that I think matters in education reform, I learned in New York City by parents, particularly parents in high needs communities, that wanted something better for their kids. And so if you gave them options, if you opened up a KIPP charter school or Achievement First charter school or an Uncommon school or Success school or Democracy Prep, if you opened those opportunities, even in the face of the political challenges, parents voted with their feet. I get stopped, it's been 7 years now since I left the chancellorship, but I get stopped on the street by people who say, thank you, you created an opportunity for my kid that didn't exist. So what parents want and the engagement that's first and foremost to them is an opportunity to get their kid in a good school. And we've got to do that. We can't just say that it's one and done, give them a neighborhood school and say, it'll get better someday. You know, you can't fool people forever. And so creating these options is, to me, the critical piece of the puzzle that we learned in New York. Shutting down well over 100 schools, opening up many new high schools. This has all been studied time and time again. And creating those options, giving people choices, has led to far better outcomes, whether it was the small high schools we did in New York or the charter schools in New York. And that thing has demonstrably been proven by one researcher after another. I think people who want to work on this, whether it's Student First New York that I'm active in, people have got to take on the political challenges, organize families, get parents involved, parents who care deeply about their kids' education. And that's the way the politics works, whether it's on education, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on the environment. If you don't have the votes and the political pressure and the money, it's not going to happen. It may be unfortunate. You'd like to think that good ideas and the right thing morally should be sufficient, but in politics it's going to take some muscle.